This happened 2 nights ago. I'm Jamie, a 32-year-old long-haul truck driver. I make deliveries across state lines all the time. I usually love the quiet time on the road. But that night was different. I stopped at a little truck stop, the kind that feels more abandoned than friendly. The neon lights flickered and buzzed. I got a cup of coffee, hoping it'd keep me awake. I climbed back into my truck, the inside warm and familiar, but something felt off. As I drove, the road stretched before me, flat and empty. I cranked up the radio to drown out my thoughts. I wanted to shake off the fatigue creeping in. But then I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I squinted into the darkness. A figure stood by the roadside, lit by my headlights. I thought maybe they needed help. I slowed down, but as I got closer, the figure just vanished. I felt a chill run through my body. Maybe it was nothing. The next night I was more alert. I didn't want to think about what I'd seen. The highway was surrounded by dark forests. Shadows flashed past me. I tried to convince myself it was just the trees. But sometimes they felt like they were moving closer, like they were watching me. I pulled into that same truck stop. The coffee tasted bitter this time. I sat in my cab trying to relax. That S when I heard whispers. They were low and hard to make out. My heart raced. I glanced outside. Just me and the night. I laughed a little, trying to feel normal, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't ease up. Back on the road, the feeling of being followed grew stronger. I kept seeing a vehicle behind me in my mirror. But when I looked back, nothing was there. I don't know how many times I turned my head. My breath felt heavy in my chest. Then I reached the spot where I'd seen the figure before. My heart pounded. The highway felt like a trap. I wanted to push through, but fear clawed at me. And there it was again, right at the edge of my headlights. I slammed on the brakes, my mind racing. "Are you okay?" I called out. No answer. The figure just stood there, staring. I felt like I couldn't move. And then, just like before, it was gone. That silence was thick. I couldn't shake the question. What was happening? My gut twisted tight. I didn't understand. But I knew I wasn't alone on that road. I glanced around, but there was nothing but darkness. I hated that I felt so helpless. As I drove on, I felt the shadows close in again, like they wanted me to remember. I wish I could forget. I don't think I ever will. I drove for hours, the asphalt stretching infinitely in front of me. The shadows kept playing tricks on my mind. Every dark shape seemed to morph and waver, teasing my anxiety. I rolled down the window, letting the cool night air swirl in. Maybe the fresh breeze would clear my head, but it only brought new sounds: crickets chirping, an insistent rustling in the trees. I was approaching the next town when I spotted a rest area. I pulled in, hoping to shake off the unease. It was empty except for a few flickering lights overhead. I parked and stepped outside, stretching my legs. It felt good to be away from the confines of the cab, but a nagging sensation tickled the back of my mind. I wandered to the picnic tables, when I noticed something strange near the edge of the trees. A small backpack lay forgotten, half hidden by the brush. My curiosity piqued. I approached it. Maybe it belonged to the figure I had seen. I knelt down, unzipping the bag. Inside, I found clothes: a faded t-shirt and jeans. They didn't look worn, but I found something alarming wedged deep into the side pocket. A small, crumpled note. My heart raced as I unfolded it, more out of shock than intrigue. "Get out while you still can," it read. My throat felt tight. I looked around, suddenly aware of the dead silence. I felt like something was lurking, watching me. I shoved the note back into the backpack as panic surged through me. Had someone been here? Someone like me? Or worse? I jumped when I heard a faint rustling behind me. Probably just an animal or the wind, I reassured myself. But I turned anyway, scanning the darkness. Nothing moved. Still, that knot in my stomach twisted tighter. I had to leave, fast. I hurried back to my truck, climbing into the cab almost frantically. The engine roared back to life, and I felt a surge of temporary relief as I hit the gas. But the echo of the note lingered in my mind. What had I stumbled into? I needed answers. As the mileage on the odometer rolled by, The darkness outside pressed in like a living thing. I took deep breaths, forcing myself to stay calm. Then I glanced in the mirror and froze. There it was again, a shadowy figure on the edge of the road, lingering just outside my headlights. My heart stopped. It wasn't the first time, but this felt different. This time I didn't slow down. I pressed harder on the gas, my hands gripping the wheel. But as I flew by, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was chasing me. I drove faster, the headlights carving through the night, but my eyes darted in the mirror. I half expected to see it gain on me. Instead, all I saw was blackness, swallowing the road behind me. Then came the low hum of the radio, barely audible. It warped and twisted, words glitching in and out. I leaned closer, but just as I tried to make sense of it, everything went dead silent. Then, without warning, a voice broke through, clear and chilling. "Jamie?" I slammed on the brakes, my tires screeching against the asphalt as the world darkened around me. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. "Jamie!" The voice echoed in my mind, twisting my stomach into knots. Instinct took over, and I fumbled with the ignition, turning the key again, desperate to escape. The engine grumbled but seemed reluctant, as if it too felt the heaviness of the moment. Finally, it rumbled to life, and I hit the gas, my heart hammering in my chest. The headlights cut through the dark, but the road felt infinitely vacant, unsettlingly so. I needed to put distance between myself and that voice. My mind raced, searching for clarity. Who had called my name? Was it a trick of the dark? Or was someone out there? I glanced in the rearview mirror again. The night gave me nothing but shadows. I felt a surge of relief and fear all at once. Maybe whatever had been pursuing me had given up. But just then, the radio crackled alive again, static fizzing like a swarm of angry insects. I shook my head, trying to drown it out. That voice, it was too familiar, too personal. In a moment of panic, I grasped the radio knob and twisted, turning it off. Silence enveloped me once more. I drove on, pushing the road's emptiness behind me. Then I spotted something ahead. A flicker of lights illuminated the night. It wasn't much a roadside diner, the type you see in old movies. A neon open sign buzzed lazily above the entrance. I considered stopping, hoping the warmth and light would feel like a refuge from the growing dread creeping up my spine. But something held me back. That nagging feeling from before lingered. Instead, I cruised past the diner, its light flickering in the rearview. I promised myself I would just get back on the road. But then, a movement caught my eye. I slammed on the brakes again. Dark figures loomed just inside the diner's parking lot. I couldn't make them out clearly. A group gathered under the neon glow, their faces blurred in the night. Were they waiting for someone? Or were they watching me? My heart thudded even harder as unease settled deep. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted, a crash, followed by frantic shouting. My instincts screamed at me to get out of there. Without thinking, I shifted into drive and tore away from the diner, my foot losing restraint. As I sped down the highway, the trees blurred into a dark wall on either side. I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me, or the dread that whatever I had felt earlier was still out there, just beyond sight. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. A vehicle had appeared behind me, headlights blaring as it closed the gap. My hands tightened on the wheel. Couldn't be a coincidence? No one else should have been driving this remote stretch. The chill of realization swept over me. I wasn't just being hunted, I was being followed. In a surge of adrenaline, I glanced toward the rearview mirror again. The headlights were closer now, sharper, illuminating the outlines of the car and its occupants. I couldn't see their faces, but I didn't want to. I pressed harder on the gas, desperate for distance, for safety. And then, just like that, the world went dark. The headlights flickered and vanished. An instant later, my truck sputtered and lost power, the engine dying with a reluctant wheeze. No. This couldn't be happening. I was stuck, alone, and whatever was pursuing me was getting closer. I sat in the pitch black, the only sound the soft thumping of my heart in my ears. Panic surged through me as I twisted the ignition, again and again. Nothing happened. Just silence. The air felt dense, pressing against my chest like a weight. I was completely exposed. With no other options, I threw open the door and stepped into the cool night. The darkness swallowed me whole. I scanned the surroundings, hoping to catch sight of anything that could give me a clue. I wasn't ready to accept that I'd broken down out here, in the middle of nowhere. Then, from my left, I heard a sound. A shuffling. My breath caught. My eyes zeroed in on the tree line. The shadows shifted, and my heart raced. Slowly, I backed toward my truck, every instinct screaming at me to get in. Just as I reached for the door, I heard it again, a low growl. Fear pulsed as I turned to face the sound. A figure stepped forward, barely illuminated by the faint moonlight. My heart dropped. A large, scruffy dog, or maybe something larger, more menacing, was crouched low to the ground, eyeing me like I was a meal. I stood frozen. Just as I thought I couldn't endure another moment, the growl deepened, and I bolted back toward my truck, slamming the door shut. I fumbled with my phone, wishing for even a flicker of light. But of course, the battery had died hours ago. I felt so utterly alone. Then came a tapping sound. Faint at first, but quickly growing louder. Someone was knocking on the metal exterior of my truck. I froze again, holding my breath. Couldn't they see I was trapped in a nightmare? "Hey, are you in there?" The voice called out, breaking through the panic. It was a man, his tone urgent but not aggressive. My relief was short-lived, as I still had no idea if he was friend or foe. "Is someone out there?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please help. I saw your lights go out. You need to get out of the truck. There's something out here." His voice was tinged with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. What do you mean?" "I don't have time to explain. You have to listen to me. Get out." The tapping grew frantic, and I felt paralyzed. Should I trust him? The growling from the dog or creature, I couldn't tell which, felt like it was drawing closer. Suddenly, the growling turned into a sharp snarl, and the man yelled, "Now! Move!" His urgency snapped something inside me. I unlocked the door with shaking hands and threw it open. I burst out, adrenaline propelling me. I didn't even know where I was running. I just needed to move. He grabbed my wrist, and together we dashed away from the truck, the shadows twisting around us like swirling tendrils. I pushed past bushes, heart racing as we plunged into darkness. "What's happening?" I gasped, desperate for an explanation. "There's something in those trees. We need to keep moving now." As we navigated the thick underbrush, sounds echoed behind us. It wasn't just the growling now. There were voices, low and sinister, crawling beneath the surface of the night. When I saw it, a flicker of light from the direction of the truck, where moments before I felt so trapped. But what was that light? A beacon or something worse? "Turn back." The man pulled me closer, but I couldn't stop looking. Whatever was waiting at the edge of the clearing called out to me, shrouded in urgency and fear. I had to know what it was. And just like that, the ground shifted beneath my feet, and I found myself spiraling into darkness once more. My world spun for a moment, disorientation sucking me back into chaos. I hit the ground hard, the impact jarring through my bones. The man yanked me up without hesitation, dragging me deeper into the underbrush. I stumbled to keep pace, my senses firing off alarms. The howls in the distance sent chills racing down my spine, each echoing note lingering in the air. "What was that light?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's a distraction," he said, glancing anxiously over his shoulder. "You should never look back in moments like this. Just keep moving." I wanted answers. The fear coursing through me felt more intense with each fleeting moment. I strained my ears, filtering through the sounds, a mix of rustling leaves and low murmurs, growing louder as we ran. What did they want? Suddenly, the man stopped and turned, scanning the trees that surrounded us. "We're not safe yet. We have to find shelter." Before I could ask more, he led me off the path, through clumps of brush, and toward what looked like a small cabin in the distance. It was barely standing but appeared to be shielded from the swirling presence of whatever lurked behind us. My fear was palpable, clinging to me like fog. We reached the cabin, and he pushed the door open slowly. It creaked ominously, revealing a dark and dusty interior. I peered inside, heart racing, and the smell of damp would hit me. I hesitated, but he urged me forward. Inside. Hurry. Once inside, he shut the door behind us, breathing heavily, eyes darting. I could barely catch my breath myself. What's going on? I demanded, taking a small step back. You didn't tell me what we were running from. Listen, he replied, voice low. There's a group something that hunts in the dark. They use the light to lure people in. It's a trap. My mind raced. The flickering light I had seen before was a trap? It all felt surreal, and the weight of his words settled in my chest. The shadows outside seemed to close in. I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, an old newspaper clipping framed in a dusty corner. My curiosity got the better of me. I stepped closer, trying to read through the grime. As I wiped it down, I squinted, pulse quickening. It was an article about mysterious disappearances along this very highway. It looks like you know the area, I said, keeping my gaze locked on the article. What happened to those people? People get too curious, he replied, his jaw tightening. These woods hold secrets. Secrets they'll do anything to keep buried. Just then, a loud crash finally shattered the tense silence. A heavy thump reverberated through the cabin, making our hearts race faster. Stay quiet, he mouthed, moving away from the door. My heart was in my throat. I could barely breathe as I pressed myself against the wall. The darkness outside seemed to pulse with life. It felt like the world around us held its breath. Then I heard it, a deep, guttural voice outside, whispering just beyond the door. We know you're in there. My stomach dropped. What do we do? I whispered, fear wrapping around me like a vice. His eyes widened as he quietly gestured toward the back window. We move now. No more waiting. And just like that, my world flipped once more as we prepared to face whatever awaited us outside. The man moved to the window, peering through the broken glass. His breath quickened as he scanned the area outside. I watched, heart pounding, feeling like a deer caught in headlights. Wait, I whispered, too afraid to make a sound. But my curiosity bubbled up. What do they want? He glanced back at me, eyes filled with urgency. They don't want what? They want who? Just like us. Suddenly, a shadow darted past the cabin. I held my breath, eyes wide. It stopped, silhouetted against the moonlight. I couldn't make out any features. I instinctively crouched lower, my instincts screaming for me to hide. The cabin felt too thin and fragile, like paper against the weight of whatever lurked beyond its walls. They're here, he breathed, tightening his grip on the wall. We need to move. Now. Before I could follow him, I heard something scraping against the cabin door. My mind raced. Were they trying to get in? I turned back to see what the man was doing. He had grabbed a rusted old fishing rod from a corner. It seemed ridiculous, but desperation filled the air like smoke. What's that for? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. To defend ourselves, he replied. His face was stern, but I could see the fear beneath it. We can't let them know we're hiding. As he eased the cabin door open just enough to slip out, I felt a surge of dread. What if they see us? We'll make a run for the trees as soon as we're outside, he said, stepping through. I followed him cautiously, every instinct screaming at me with each step. The cool night air hit me like a punch. The moonlight flooded the area, casting shadows that seemed to dance and twist on their own. My eyes darted, searching for any sign of movement, every sound magnifying my anxiety. We shouldn't be out here, I whispered, panic rising as I peered into the darkness. Just keep close, he urged. I nodded, forcing my feet to move. We kept to the edge of the cabin, inching toward the thick trees that loomed like giants. Then, I heard a rustling behind me, followed by a low growl. My heart jumped into my throat, and I turned to see the dark shape moving slowly towards us, almost as if it was stalking. Move, he hissed, and we broke into a sprint, running toward the safety of the trees. The further we got from the cabin, the more I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, uncertain and treacherous. But just as I reached the trees, I felt something icy brush against my face. Confused, I turned my head, only to see a pair of gleaming eyes locked onto mine from the shadows. They were hungry eyes, darting hungrily, and quickly, I realized they weren't alone. That way, the man shouted, his voice urgent. We dove into the underbrush, weaving through tree trunks, branches clawing at us. The growls grew louder, angry and desperate, circling around like predators. Why are they after us? I yelled, hoping for some clarity amidst the chaos. They want us for something we can't comprehend. He shouted back, just keep running. Just then, I stumbled and fell into a small clearing. I gasped for breath, my hands scratching against the rough ground. That S when I saw it, an old symbol carved into a tree, illuminated by the moon. It glowed faintly, pulsing gently as if alive. What is that? I asked, scrambling to my feet. He stopped abruptly, staring wide-eyed at the tree. I don't know, but we need to go. But it was too late. The eyes emerged from the shadows, and as the growls crescendoed, I realized we might not make it out alive. The growls surrounding us turned into a cacophony of snarls. My heart raced as I scrambled backward, adrenaline fueling my next move. The man yanked my arm. This way. He pulled me deeper into the woods, but I couldn't look away from that glowing symbol. Wait, what if it can help us? I urged, but I sensed it wouldn't be enough. The air felt charged, an unseen energy buzzing around us. Trust me, it's not safe here, he shouted over the noise. Reluctantly, I followed him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we were running from was only the beginning. As we stumbled through the underbrush, tripping over roots and fallen branches, I realized I could still hear the growls not far behind us. Then, I spotted something else, a flicker of movement among the trees. For silhouettes, emerging from the shadows. They were tall, lean, and appeared almost human, but there was something off about them. Their movements were jerky and unnatural, like marionettes on strings. They seemed to be drawn to the growls, as if they belonged to whatever was hunting us. We skidded to a halt. What are those? I whispered, my voice trembling. I don't know, he said, his voice low and shaky. But they're not friendly. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as the figures circled around us. Their eyes glowed with that same hunger I had just seen. We need to find another way out, I urged, panic rising. There's no time. We have to confront them. He snapped, gripping the fishing rod like a weapon. Confront them? I echoed, incredulous. You want to fight them? They don't look like they're just going to back down. Before he could reply, one of the figures lunged at us. It moved with a shocking speed, but the man swung the fishing rod, catching it across the face. The creature stumbled back, letting out an ear-piercing screech. I don't want to die here, I shouted, throwing caution to the wind as I grabbed a large branch lying nearby, hoping it could serve as a makeshift weapon. But there was no time to think. The other creatures moved in. In the chaos, I caught a glimpse of their faces and saw twisted, elongated features, mouths lined with razor-sharp teeth. They were not just after us. They were hungry. We have to move. The man shouted again, urgency flashing in his eyes. We sidestepped, barely dodging their grasping claws. It was in that moment I remembered the symbol, the faint glow still beckoning from the tree. What if it has something to do with them? Now's not the time to analyze. We can't stay out in the open. He yelled as another creature lunged past us. With a forceful shove, he set me in motion again toward the clearing where the symbol lay. I lurched forward, desperation thrumming in my veins. If we were going to escape, we needed to understand what we were up against. As I neared the glowing tree, something unexpected happened. The light intensified, casting a protective aura around me. The creatures hesitated, their growls turning to whines as they recoiled. Stay close, the man shouted, racing to my side. If that light can hold them back, we might have a chance. Breathlessly, I reached out to touch the symbol. The moment my fingers made contact, the ground shook beneath us. What did I just do? I gasped. But even as I asked, the growls changed. The creatures started to writhe and transform before our eyes. What was happening? I felt a surge of power flow through me. The fear that had gripped me now morphed into something else, a determination to fight back. Just then, the trees around us began to shake violently, and I realized this moment could change everything. The creatures weren't done yet. They were just starting. And I was at the center of whatever was about to unfold. The world around me shifted as the ground trembled. I braced myself against the tree, a strange energy coursing through me. The light from the symbol seemed to expand, pushing back against the creatures. They screeched again, a terrifying sound that rattled my bones. But before I could process this newfound power, the man shouted to me, "Don't just stand there. Focus on the light." I closed my eyes and concentrated. The glow flickered, and suddenly, images flashed behind my eyelids. It was the forest full and alive, but with shadows flickering just out of sight. Strange symbols danced across my mind like figments just beyond grasp. Then, I felt a connection to the symbol, as if it was more than just a glow. It was a gateway to something ancient, something that could either protect us or seal our fate. I opened my eyes. The creatures paused, seemingly struggling against whatever was happening. They shook, and their forms began to flicker, shifting between the grotesque figures I had seen and something more familiar. My stomach knotted with fear. This wasn't just a fight. It was something deeper. "What's going on?" I yelled, desperate for an explanation. "I think the symbol is connected to them," he shouted back, his voice strained. "They might have been trapped here somehow. They want to break free." I hesitated. The thought of freeing those monsters didn't sit right with me. I couldn't ignore their twisted faces. What if we let them go and they turn on us? Or what if they were once human? He countered, glancing back at me, urgency in his eyes. "We need to decide quickly." Before I could reply, the creatures began to scream. The light pulsed violently, and I felt a tug at my chest, as if the symbol was trying to pull me in. It was exhilarating and terrifying. The trees around us shook like they were alive, branches snapping and swaying. I could see the outlines of the creatures becoming more defined. One stepped closer, revealing a face I recognized. It wasn't just a monster. It was a person distorted and twisted, but there was a glimmer of humanity left within. "No," I gasped, backing away. "What have they become?" "They're lost," he yelled, feeling the urgency rise. "They might not be beyond saving. If we can harness this light, we might be able to restore them." I looked back at the glowing symbol. If I focused hard enough, maybe I could pull them back. But what if the risk was too great? What if helping them only brought more danger? The growling resumed, louder than before. The creatures were getting restless, fighting against whatever was holding them back. The man stepped closer to me. "We can do this together. Channel the light." Then everything went dark. The light flickered and faded, leaving us enveloped in deep blackness. I could hear the creatures' growls growing more desperate, their shadows merging around us. There was no turning back. I had to find that power again, but in that moment of shadow, I sensed something else, a darker force creeping near. It was like the atmosphere changed, thickening with malice. And then, just like that, I was no longer at the center of the unfolding event. I was part of a bigger battle, one that I wasn't prepared for. I realized this was just the beginning. When the light vanished, it took with it the thin veil of safety I had been clinging to. I stumbled through the darkness, my hands outstretched, desperately seeking anything solid. The growls surrounded me now, a cacophony of fury and despair that thrummed in my chest. "Stay close." The man's voice cut through the darkness. His tone was urgent, but I could hear the tremor beneath it. I pressed forward, locking my eyes onto his silhouette. In that suffocating black, he was my only anchor. Suddenly, the ground beneath us shifted again, and I felt myself slipping. Panic surged as I fought to gain my footing. It was as if the earth itself was pulling us down, threatening to swallow us whole. I reached out, fingers grazing the bark of a tree, grounding myself just long enough to avoid falling. I could feel it then, a pulse beneath the soil, quickening like a heartbeat. "What is happening?" I shouted, straining to hear him over the escalating growls. "I don't know," he yelled back, but there was fear in his voice now. It's like they're reacting to the darkness. From the shadows, I saw movement, a figure darting into view before disappearing just as quickly. It was quick, almost too quick to be one of the creatures. I strained my eyes, trying to discern what I had just glimpsed. Just inches away, the shadows morphed into unsettling shapes, swirling like smoke. Then, everything went quiet. The growls faded into nothing. The silence felt wrong, like the calm before a storm. I exchanged a nervous glance with the man. We both sensed it. Whatever had been lurking was still there, watching us. "Where did they go?" I whispered, suddenly aware of the weight of my breath in the stillness. He cut himself off, eyes wide. "Look out!" Before I could react, a creature lunged from the shadows, its grotesque form charging straight for me. I braced for impact, but the man intervened, shoving me aside. They collided, powerful muscles and twisted limbs grappling, tearing at each other in a frenzy. "Run!" he shouted as he struggled to push the creature back. The fear in his eyes made my skin prickle. I didn't need to be told twice. I turned and sprinted, heart racing. My feet pounded against the ground, branches clawing at me as I pushed deeper into the forest. Panic fueled my legs, but I couldn't lose focus. The light had to be out there somewhere, waiting for me to find it again. As I broke through the underbrush, I stopped short. The dark forest opened up into a clearing, illuminated by the faint glow of a distant light. "Is it the symbol?" I gasped out loud, feeling the warmth beckoning me. But then I noticed something else. The clearing was filled with figures, humans or what looked like them. They were gathered around the light, faces contorted. There was an unholy desperation in their eyes, glistening with unspoken suffering. It was then I understood. These weren't the monsters I thought they were. They were victims of whatever had twisted them, lost in this nightmarish state. I took a step back, heart hammering. "Help us!" one of them cried out, voice breaking over the distance. I was torn. The light pulsated like a heartbeat again, and I felt that strange sensation pulling at me once more. I had to choose: face my fear and certainly step into danger, or run back into the darkness where the creatures still lurked. As I stood there, every second stretched out, I knew my next action could change everything. That glimmer of light was more than just a symbol, it seemed to pulse with hope. But then, an echoing growl pierced the air behind me, reminding me that time was running out. I had to decide. I took a deep breath, weighing my choices beside the glow of the light and those pained, twisted faces. Each heartbeat drummed into the stillness, reminding me of the shadows still lurking beyond the trees. It felt as if every choice I made was pulling me in different directions, but the urgency in my gut told me I couldn't wait any longer. "Jamie!" I heard the man's voice echo faintly through the clearing. I glanced back to where he vanished into the thick of the trees, and the sound of another growl, menacing and close, crystallized my fear. He was fighting for his life, and I couldn't abandon him. Clenching my jaw against the raging storm of emotions, I made my decision. I wouldn't leave anyone behind, not in this torturous nightmare. I turned toward the light, stepping forward, drawn by the hope it emitted. "I'll help you," I called out to the group, my voice trembling but resolute. "I'll try to free you." The figures stirred, their eyes widening. "You can help us," one of them cried again, extending a hand that trembled with despair. "Break the hold." I could feel the light pulsing at my fingertips the closer I approached, almost warm against my skin, as if recognizing my intent. The air hummed with an energy I hadn't felt before, softly wrapping around me. But just then, a deep growl erupted behind me, and the clearing darkened as shadows shifted, revealing the very creatures I had fled. Before I could turn, I felt sharp claws scrape my shoulder. With a primal scream, I swung around to face it, and a surge of energy coursed through me, the pulsing light ignited. I was caught in this nexus of power and fear, holding fast onto the hope I felt within. I flung my arm forward, the light blindingly bright, spreading out like the wings of dawn erupting over the horizon. The creature recoiled, twisted features scrunching as it shrieked and staggered back. Pushing through the pain, I focused on that glow. "You will not take this from me," I shouted to the darkness, tapping into the echo of those lost souls in the shadows. "Together," cried the faces from behind me. They joined in, their voices blending with mine, a chorus of rising strength as we pieced together the fragments of hope and light. I churned the energy, willing it to rise, to melt away the darkness that sought to claim us. As darkness wrapped around the edge of the clearing, I saw the wicked creatures shudder but also fracture, their forms shifting, twisting from monstrous shapes back toward something almost human. They fought against it, but an unseen force drew them towards the light we were creating. In that moment, time felt suspended, caught between the ferocity of human will and the shadow's sinister grip. I can't explain what happened next, the way the night trembled, or how the light seemed to reach for me, lapping at my fingertips like a welcoming tide. But I knew somehow it had to be done. I heard the man's voice, faint yet resilient, urging me to persist. "Don't let go, Jamie." With one final surge, the energy erupted around us, illuminating the darkness. I could feel the pulse of life wrap around me, connecting even the most obscure threads of existence. The world went brilliant white, and the pain, fear, and darkness slipped from my grasp with a shattering force. And then silence. When I drifted back into consciousness, the light was gone, replaced by a pale moon hovering above us. I staggered to my feet, my heart pounding in the stale air. The clearing was now empty, yet eerily calm. The figures were gone, along with the creatures and their growls. "Did we make it?" I murmured to the night, disoriented. My gaze fell on the man leaning against a tree, face weary but alive with hope. "Maybe," he replied, looking out to the darkened trees. "But what just happened? Did we free them or bind ourselves to something we can't quite grasp?" His questions hung heavy in the air, unresolved. Vague memories washed over me, images of the light, the figures, and the feeling of connection. I breathed deeply, feeling a mix of relief and lingering dread. "I don't know," I finally replied, my voice subdued. "But we need to keep moving, just in case." He nodded, the uncertainty mirrored in his eyes. As we stepped into the trees, silence surrounded us, but uncertainty lingered like a distant echo. I felt different, scarred somehow, but strong. Whatever had taken place had changed me, had interwoven my fate with the shadows of that night, leaving lingering questions clawing at the edges of my mind. As we pushed forward, I couldn't help but glance back one last time, searching the blackened trees for any signs of life or the remnants of our confrontation. But all that remained was the stillness of the night, leaving us with a fragile sense of peace, and questions that might never find answers. I moved to a different city after that, away from highways and dark forests. But sometimes, when the night grows quiet, I wonder if those shadows are still out there, waiting, weaving their stories into the dark.